Hello, how are you? Another episode of Drug Society and Human Behavior coming at you from Howard's Garage. And today we're going to do tobacco. We'll be talking about the plant and the products that come from the plant and how they've affected our culture. And tobacco use in the United States of America is a real big issue. In fact, it is the big issue in the USA. If you take all of our illegal drugs and prescription drug problems and roll them into a big ball, you still don't see the same consequences and the magnitude of the consequences to our citizens and to our society as you do with tobacco use. Tobacco is a tremendous health risk. 1 in 5 people who die in the United States every year, that's 20%. 1 in 5 people who die in this country die from a tobacco-related illness. And that is a consequence, that is a direct consequence of smoking. And so it is a very big deal. And that's just in terms of the deaths. The smoking-related illnesses in this country cost us trillions. And that's one of the reasons that we have such high insurance costs. Man, if we could eliminate cigarette smoking, healthcare would go way down in costs, way down. So is a tremendous drain on our resources, and that's not even talking about the human capital. So that's the sort of thing we're going to talk about tonight. If you don't want to get depressed, you may want to hold off on this till later. Anyway, here we go. Tobacco has always, as far as history is concerned, tobacco use in America has always been here. Native Americans were using tobacco, Nicotiana tabacum and Nicotiana rustica were the two. Nicotiana tabacum is the broadleaf plant here. Nicotiana rustica is a narrow-leafed plant, and it's a more bitter plant, so they're not as fond of that, but it's a tobacco too. And these plants have been used and had been used for centuries in the Americas before the white man, first European, ever set foot in this country. So, and tobacco products include leaf, smoking tobacco, the kind that you roll for yourself or put in a pipe. It has cigarettes, cigars, chewing tobacco, traditional snuff, and rough cut snuff. And you'll know what all of these are before we're through here if you don't already. This is a New World plant. Europeans, Africans, Asians had no experience with tobacco until the discovery of the New World by Columbus 528 years ago. So you can pretty much date European experience from that point. Asia, the Near East, Middle East, the Far East, those areas didn't really get rolling with tobacco use until around 1600, so that was more like 400 years ago. But European explorers came here, and the indigenous people, in trading with them, learned how to drink whiskey and taught them how to use tobacco. Nice trade-off, huh? European explorers took the tobacco habit home with them. It's a mystical, magical plant. It's used for all kinds of conditions. In fact, the word tobacco comes from the Arabic word tabak, which basically means a medicinal plant or a medicinal herb. a medicine. And cigarettes, tobacco, not cigarettes, but tobacco has been considered a medicinal herb forever in the Americas and also in Europe. We blow smoke into the ear for earache. Well, I say we. If you come from a hillbilly background like I do, yeah, I can say we. You know, I remember my mother, who didn't smoke, lighting a cigarette and blowing smoke into my ear for an earache. I may get ear cancer because of that before it's over with. Burning tobacco on the stomach. Put a cloth on the stomach, put some tobacco on it, light the tobacco, put a cup over that, and let the smoke gather and cup to treat a stomach ache. Doesn't work, really. A warm cloth, a heating pad or something will sometimes give you relief, and maybe in that regard. Tobacco poultices for all sorts of injuries and illness. Put tobacco in a poultice and then put it around your chest when you got the croup or you have a bronchial infection or something along those lines. And my grandmother was the poultice queen. She would put stuff on me. The dogs would try to drag me out in the yard and bury me. But anything that you'd get sick with, my grandmother come up with a poultice for. Putting chewing tobacco on bee stings. That works, by the way. If you want to have kind of a home remedy thing around for bee stings and wasp stings. Now, we're not talking about for people who are allergic to it. You go into anaphylactic shock for that. You probably need an EpiPen and to get to the hospital as quick as possible. But you can put chewing tobacco, chew some of it up and put it on a bee sting or a wasp sting, and it will alleviate the pain, and it will also draw the venom out. So that is one home remedy that works. The best advice for that is don't get stung. Avoid wasps and bees, but, you know, it happens. And then resuscitating the drowned. This is a guy who is using an anal syringe to inject smoke into the alimentary canal here in a procedure that was supposed to resuscitate drowned people and animals. It doesn't work, and it's kind of a useless treatment, although that was one of the treatments for it, and it was and there were some other conditions too, but drowning being the primary. It doesn't work. It's useless, and that might be, why we came up with the term of blowing smoke up one's ass, is doing something that's of no consequence. Just thought you might know that. The chemicals. See, you take some dried up leaves, set them on fire, and then suck the superheated gases deep into your lungs. What could possibly go wrong with that, huh? Wonder how they decided on Nicotiana tabacum. What if they tried poison oak, or poison sumac, or poison ivy, or something along those lines? A thing I probably ought to share with you when I'm kind of poking fun at these people, even though they came up with some kind of strange ideas at the time, the primitive people were every bit as smart as modern people. We don't have, we are not inherently more intelligent today than we ever have been before. The caveman who's sitting out on a rock in front of the cave and using a flint and using two pieces of rock to make a flint spearhead is a technician who was very, very skilled at what he did. He didn't have the technology available to him that modern man does, but he was every bit as smart as we were, and he was every bit as creative as we are. So, the experimentation with plants and herbs and animals and all that kind of stuff has been going on as long as there's been human beings. primitive Americans learned early on that Nicotiana tobacco that is a crop that grew here in North America, and South and Central America too. It had some properties to it, and it was considered somewhat mystical and magical. It's addictive, and the active agent that's the addictive agent in tobacco products is nicotine, but there are plenty of other chemicals that are in tobacco too. There are also tars. There are tobacco-specific nitrosamines, and the nitrosamines are the carcinogenic or cancer-causing agents found in tobacco products. We'll talk about that a little later. So, tobacco products were used by the indigenous peoples of the New World and taken to Europe. The way that the people here in North America used them is they smoked them primarily. And down towards the Caribbean, they rolled tobacco. They'd cure tobacco, let it dry, chop it up fine, roll it up inside a dried tobacco leaf, and it was a cigar. And they'd set it on fire, and then they'd stick it in their nose and inhale. They didn't put it in their mouth. And initially, it was taken through the nose here in the New World. But smoking, inhaling through the mouth soon became a popular way of drinking tobacco, as it was called back then. The Europeans took it with them back to Europe. Everywhere tobacco use was introduced, it was frowned upon. People pretty soon became disenchanted with it and didn't like it and opposed it. But there was a market for it. There were plenty of people who liked it and who did use it, and it was a cash endeavor. So that where there's a market, there's a supply. The British Crown held a monopoly on American-produced tobacco. King James II. Yeah, that King James, that Bible guy. He also wrote a treatise against using tobacco, even though the Crown held a monopoly on it. James disapproved of the use of it. The Spanish Crown held a monopoly on Nicotiana tobacco. The broadleaf plant is the most popular, and they tried to introduce both tobaccos into Britain, but it doesn't grow well there. The climate isn't conducive to the growth. A lot of good tobacco grows outside the Americas in the Middle East and places like that, in Africa, but not all of Europe's conducive to it. So the colonies here in the New World, particularly the New England colonies, the Virginia colony, Jamestown, tobacco was a cash crop for them. So was marijuana, for that matter. Of course, they called it hemp back then. But the British Crown held a monopoly on American-produced tobacco, and they taxed it heavily. And that was a big source of irritation between the colonists and the Crown, all the way back to 150 years before we got pissed off and dumped a bunch of tea in the Boston Harbor. Cigars is one of the oldest of the tobacco products. You take the tobacco, you chop it, you cure it, and you cure the leaves as well, and then you roll the chopped tobacco, or you roll the leaves, which is another way to do it. You just roll the leaves up and create a cigar, and then you can set it on fire and inhale the superheated gases. Cigars are manufactured in all tobacco-producing states. I should put nations there instead of states, but in all tobacco-producing nations, anywhere you find tobacco produced, you find cigars. Cuban cigars are the ones that are most prized by aficionados the world over. And of course, this is the proper way to roll a Cuban cigar. A Cuban cigar is best rolled on the thigh, inner thigh of a beautiful woman whose job it is to roll that cigar. So they're quite prized. I worry about that girl getting thigh cancer. But anyway, really it's more like this. It is pretty convenient if your job is to roll cigars, so it's to roll them on a leg, but it's more convenient if you have a surface like this young lady's working on. It's not always a young lady. There's a guy sitting right next to her doing the same job, but hand-rolling cigars. And Cuban cigars are all hand-rolled, supposedly. There's no way to really know that, right? And many Cuban cigars are rolled in Miami. They bring the tobacco with American tobacco. So, be careful, you cigar aficionados out there. When you smoke a cigar, the deal is that you light it and you suck the smoke in and then you blow the smoke out. Convention is you don't inhale it, but anytime you inhale a gas into your mouth, you can pretty well take it to the bank that some of it gets in your lungs. And a lot of people who smoke cigars will inhale the cigars. Cigars are not a good alternative to cigarette smoking. They're not a good way. Back in the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s, guys were trying to quit smoking cigarettes by taking up cigar smoking or by taking up smokeless tobacco use. It's not a good way to do that. You're continuing with your nicotine addiction, for one thing, even though you're switching the delivery system. But you're still sucking smoke into your body, and sucking smoke into your body from a burning tobacco leaf is a very bad idea. Smokeless tobacco. This is a very old form of tobacco use as well. Snuff, chewing tobacco, etc. This is plug chewing tobacco right there, and this is loose leaf tobacco like you would find with in the pouches. Smokeless tobacco is the rough cut snuff that this guy is putting into his lip. Snuff in America is used differently than snuff was in the rest of the world, but we'll get to that. And then here's a guy spitting a stream of tobacco juice from the baseball field. Tobacco chewing is nasty on its best day, but if you got a beard, it's really nasty. Anyway, snuff is finely powdered tobacco. Snuff is meant to be insufflated. You sniff it, snuffed, like that, into the nose, and introduced to mucous membranes in the sinuses, which is how you get your nicotine. And nicotine is that stimulant substance that's found in tobacco. This addicting. Snuff became really popular in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries in Europe and in the colonies. A lot of Americans were snuffers in the colony. But when you got out into the country, and these backwoodsy Americans back in the day, who weren't Americans yet because there wasn't an America, they were British colonists, began to use it orally, and then later, when the states were formed, they were still using it orally, and they still use it orally today. The fine ground stuff, the Garrett snuff, for instance, there's a fine powder. It's like talcum, and you can take a little pinch and snort it, or you can. There's an old folk song back from the 20s, if I'm not mistaken, called Tickle Me, about getting carried out behind the wood. My Pop would take me out behind the woodshed and tickle me, which basically mean you got a beating. I put pepper in Grandpa's snuff box, and they took me outside and tickled me. Anyway, the snuff box that this guy is holding was, a pretty common thing to find in a gentleman's pocket for about 300 years or so in the Americas and in Europe. Then there's chewing tobacco. This is some of the loose leaf. Levi Garrett is one of them, and that's the stuff right here that you find in there. Loose leaf chew, and it's cured tobacco. Usually tobacco is cured in something like molasses. Molasses is a pretty good thing to put it in. Let it cure. It gives it some flavor. Makes it a little bit sticky. Makes it a little bit sweet. So loose leaf chewing tobacco is cured, chopped up, and stuck in there. And this is basically the tobacco leaf. Rough cut snuff. I don't have rough cut snuff here. I got Day's Work plug tobacco and Cannonball plug tobacco. I don't know. But rough cut snuff are things like Kodiak, Copenhagen, these types of tobacco products. They're not meant to be snuffed. They're kind of a variation of the chewing tobacco. They're much more finely chopped than you'll find in this. And you take a pinch of it and you put it in your lip between your cheek and gum. And you do that with fine cut snuff in the United States too. People rarely snuff it anymore. They put it in their mouth. I knew a welder once who would load his bottom lip with that fine powdered Garrett snuff, and when he'd say something, there'd be a little brown puff come out. He'd have so much snuff in his mouth, and he'd drink beer all night and never spit. I admired the hell out of him. But anyway, Day's Work plug tobacco. By the way, advertising, appealing to the working man, right? This is what a working man does. Cannonball plug tobacco. Levi Garrett plug tobacco. Leaf tobacco. And this is a variation. It doesn't look appetizing. That's called sweet twist. Sweet twist is tobacco leaf that's twisted tightly and braided. It's usually soaked in sorghum or molasses, so that it'll have a sweet flavor to it. It doesn't look appetizing, and it just doesn't. Now, true confessions time. I've said that my mother was a hillbilly. I'm not lying. She came from the mountains of Alabama. Nearest town was Decatur. And my dad took her down out of the mountains and plopped her over here on the Gulf Coast, where she raised all of us kids. But we went back to Alabama when I was a little boy to visit her aunt, which was my great aunt. She was old, really old. And I've been around a lot of old people before. That didn't freak me out too much. But so she had a well out at her house. I was fascinated by that. I got to pump the water out of the well. That was something. I wish we had one back in Texas, She sat on the porch, and it was almost stereotypical of the hillbilly thing. And she chewed tobacco. That didn't bother me much. My mother and my grandmother both dipped snuff, the Garrett stuff, the fine powder. But while I was there, this lady, my mother's aunt, my great aunt, she reaches into her apron pocket and pulls out some sweet twist and takes a big bite out of it. Because I'm like maybe 5, maybe, if I was that old, maybe, I hadn't started school yet. I still remember it though. And because I was traumatized, I thought she was eating a little girl's pigtail. And she'd eat a little girl's pigtail, no telling what she'd do to a little boy. So I avoided her like the plague for a while. But anyway, the misunderstanding was cleared up. Smokeless tobacco is also not a safe alternative to smoking. It causes damage to the teeth. It causes damage to the gums. If you put the Copenhagen or the Kodiak, that kind of stuff, the rough cut snuff, when you first start to use it, it will make your gums and your lips sore where you apply it. And if you look at the teeth and the lower jaw where you apply the tobacco, you'll notice that in a relatively short time, the gums start pulling back away from the teeth so that more of the tooth is exposed than is normal, than it would be under normal conditions. And that drawing away from the tooth by the gums exposes the tooth to more damage. The drawing away from the tooth by the gum is consequential to damage to the gum. You're hurting the gum to cause it to do that kind of thing. You get a real heavy dose of nicotine from smokeless tobacco. You get more of a dose of nicotine from smokeless tobacco than you do from smoking. So consequentially, this is a pretty addictive method of delivering nicotine to the system. It causes damage to the tongue, the throat, the stomach, the colon, everything. It causes cancer. I didn't write it down here on the PowerPoint. I'll have to fix that. But inside the mouth, where you've had this irritating tobacco where it's been rubbing against the gums and the lip, you can fold the lip down and look inside the mouth, and you may see white patches inside along the gum line or on the lip in that area. Oral cancers are a big deal with this type of use. Those white patches are precancerous lesions. It's known as leukoplakia. That's showing you where your cancer is going to be when you develop it, right? And you will develop it if you dip long enough, if you smoke long enough. It happens. Tobacco, smoking and using tobacco products, it's not a question of they may be harmful to your health or they may cause these diseases. There's no need for qualifying. They are harmful to your health and they do cause these diseases. If you don't die of something else on the way, smoking is going to kill you. Evolution of smoking, reeds and pipes. Way many moons ago, back when buffalo still roamed downtown Houston and stuff like that, if you were going to be smoking, you'd probably have a hollow reed that you had kind of hollowed out for yourself, that you could grind your tobacco up pretty fine and pack it into that reed and set it on fire and suck the smoke through the reed. And that's a fairly good nicotine delivery system, except, you also inhale embers and, I don't know what bug parts that happen to be living in the reed or whatever. But that's a way of delivering it. We became more sophisticated with delivery systems. The wrapping the tobacco in tobacco and setting it on fire became a very much preferred system of using. But a secondary type of using tobacco that has been popular for centuries, although has fallen out of favor in the United States today. You don't see many people using a pipe anymore. This is Fred McMurray, who played the father in the TV series My Three Sons, and he smoked a pipe on there pretty frequently. So did Hugh Beaumont in his part as Ward Cleaver, so there was this was him smoking this pipe, and before he developed the throat cancer and leukemia from smoking that killed him later on. Girls smoking a hookah. Hookahs were developed, the water pipes and things, in the Middle East. There were other things you could smoke in a hookah besides tobacco, but hookah water pipe use was gained popularity in the Middle East, in Pakistan and India, and, the Arabian states. And now in America, there's lots of hookah bars where you can go to. Well, at least pre-COVID, you could go to and spark up. And some of them have been adapted for vape, where you can put all the nasty chemicals in there and superheat them and suck them into your lungs. And here is some vape devices, e-cigarettes that they used to call things that look like this. And there are tons of designs and tons of settings and loads and things that you can put into this. I got a thing today in the mail. I meant to show it to you. I forgot about vape chemicals and how I can mix and match and get them for just $9.99. Try them. I like them. You will see. Better than green eggs and ham. Lakota man smoking a pipe and vaping devices. So pipes and hookahs and water pipes and bongs, they're all related, right? So that. Loose leaf tobacco. This stuff goes in pipes too. That's half and half pipe tobacco over here on the right. This is loose leaf tobacco here. You can see it's all kinds of different colors and textures. And so's the cigarette tobacco down here that goes into what my dad used to call ready rolls. This is Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, who was involved in one of the big Hollywood scandals where a woman was murdered at a party of his, and he was implicated in that. He was a big silent film comedian, and here he is in the Wild West rolling his own cigarettes. If you roll your own loose leaf, if you take the tobacco that is cured but is not doctored in any other way, then it's different using this type of tobacco than it is using the industrially manufactured cigarettes. Pipe loads are different. You have raw versus doctored tobacco. A thing that happens is if you roll your own cigarette and you don't draw on it, it'll go out. This is Gary Cooper, by the way, rolling his own cigarette in one of his TV roles, and I don't remember which one it is, one of his film roles, rather. This is before he died of lung cancer in 1961 at the ripe old age of 60. You roll the tobacco in untreated rolling papers. It doesn't burn well. If you set a ready roll, if you roll your own cigarette and set it down, it'll go out. It just doesn't burn well, and you have to keep sucking on it to keep it burning. If you're a smoker and you smoke, store-bought, ready-rolled, industrially manufactured cigarettes, you know that when it's time to put it out, it's the same way with pipes, by the way. It just burns and burns. When it's time to put the tobacco out, you practically have it to drive a stake through the damn thing. Like, it just keeps resurrecting from the dead. You put it down on the floor and you step on it and grind on it and all that kind of stuff, and it smolders up again. If you lay your cigarette down like on an ashtray and forget about it, when you look back around, that cigarette has burned all the way down to the filter, and there's just a long line of ash where the cigarette used to be. If you put it on a countertop, those of you who are smokers know what I'm talking about. You have the little brown streaks on the countertop where the cigarette's burned to the filter and identifies you as a smoker, or it identifies the house as a place where smokers have been. Same with pipes. Pipes burn while you're sucking on them. When you stop sucking on them, the tobacco goes out. Cigarette companies don't like that, because if the tobacco goes out, if you roll your own cigarette and set it down and it goes out, and when you come back to it, you light it again, and then you smoke it some more. So you can go back to the same cigarette 2 or 3 times before you finish it. Same with that pipe. The pipe goes out, you come back and do it again. If you look here, this is a schematic representation of how cigarettes are manufactured. When you get a cigarette, you start with this product and you move it through. You condition the tobacco, you loosen it, you chop it, you blend it, you cut it some more, you dry it, then you flavor it, store it, and the tobacco. Then you roll it, and then you pack it, and then you send it out. In these stages here, when you look at let me see if I can go back to that. When you look at the pipe tobacco, it's all different kinds and all different colors. That's because the leaves have been thrown in there and chopped up, and they're dried, and then they're packaged, and then they're sent out. So you've got tobacco stem, tobacco vein, tobacco leaf, tobacco bud, all the kind of stuff in there that came with the tobacco plant. So, and you'll note the same with your cigarettes. If those of you that are smokers can check this out for yourself, take a cigarette that's been put out and unwrap the tobacco that's left and look at it. Some of it's rough, some of it's fine, some of it's dark, some of it's gold, and that's blended tobacco in there, but it's not taking this type of tobacco and that type of tobacco. It's taking a leaf and just chopping it up. If you were doing the same with fig leaves, you'd get something that looked like this. So it's not blending several types of tobacco, although they give you the impression that that's what's going on. When this is all chopped up to make a cigarette, they put it into a liquid, they mix it, they roll it out on sheets, and they dry it. They press it into like particle board. They inject it with gases to fluff it up and make it burn better. They chop it up some more, and then they send it out for cutting, drying, and rolling, and flavoring too. They put stuff in there to flavor it, like menthol and that kind of thing. Tobacco is harvested, tobacco is dried, tobacco is cut, tobacco is blended, tobacco is rolled into sheets, tobacco is injected with chemicals, tobacco is cut again, tobacco is rolled into cigarettes. And not just any old cigarettes. Now we're using papers that have been treated to burn. so that they won't go out when you set them on fire. The tobacco has been treated to burn so that it won't go out once you set it on fire. Nice, huh? And tobacco companies also manipulated nicotine levels. And that happened, did I speak to that? There it is. Additives to preserve tobacco to facilitate burning, and until the tobacco racketeering case, which was filed in '99, ruled on in 2006. The ruling was upheld in 2009. Until that, and Philip Morris was convicted of racketeering for manipulating nicotine levels to increase the addictive properties of their products. In other words, to ensure that people got addicted to them harder and sooner, and also targeted younger and younger users so that they could get you young. And it makes sense if they can get you young, and they don't mind if you're 12 or 13 or whatever, because you'll smoke longer till you die, and you'll continue to use the product. And that's pretty interesting, huh? Also, tobacco companies filed countersuits and denied forever and a day. They were still denying 10 years ago that nicotine was addictive. Well, it could be. We don't know that. Yes, we do. We know that. Yeah, and you do too. And you're selling a product that's highly dangerous to people. These are old folks, but you got an old teacher, so there you go. This is Yul Brynner. He's been dead since 1985. He was a big heartthrob. He was the cowboy, the first cowboy in Westworld, the original film. He was Taras Bulba, and he was the King of Siam and Anna and the King, and he played that for He played that role thousands of times on Broadway. Very talented actor, and he died of lung cancer in 1985. This guy down here is Bill Tallman, and he played Hamilton Berger in the old Perry Mason series back in the 50s and 60s, where he lost pretty much every week to Perry Mason, played by Raymond Burr. And the reason I've got these two guys here is they both were smokers, both were heavy smokers. Both of them died of lung cancer, and they filmed the first anti-smoking ads, really, for the American Cancer Society. And Talman's was aired in 67. It was filmed in 67. Yeah, it was filmed in 68. July of 68, aired in August of 68. And Brenner's was done in 85. But both of them were within weeks of their death. And I posted those in the course room, so you can click on them and look at them. They're relatively small spots, but powerful as anything. And Talman's particularly, he introduces us to his family, and he said, I played Hamburger, how about that, on Perry Mason, and lost all those cases, and I didn't really mind it, but I'm in a battle now that I don't want to lose, because if I lose it, it means I will lose my wife and those kids I just introduced you to. And then, and of course, 4 weeks later, or 6 weeks, I forget which, 4 to 6 weeks later, after he had made his ad, he died of lung cancer. John Wayne died of lung cancer. I mean, this is Roy Bushart died of lung cancer. Andrew Lee Bushart died of lung cancer. Roy Wayne Bushart died of lung cancer. James Michael Bushart died of cancer of the throat. So I have a little experience with what tobacco can do to a family. 1 in 5 people who die in America die because they smoked. Every year, 20% of the people who die in this country die of a smoking-related illness. Almost 500,000 people die of smoking-related illnesses annually in the United States. Worldwide, 6 million. It's like a Holocaust every year for people who use tobacco products. Smoking-related illnesses include things such as chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or emphysema. You can get the air in, but you can't get it out. Killed Leonard Nimoy. Also killed Darren from Bewitched. He had a real hard time after he left this show because of an injury, but he finally, he was a 3-pack-a-day man, and that's how he went out. Lung cancer, heart disease, asthma, and many, many other disorders are associated with the use of tobacco products or being around people who are smoking. Side stream smoke is dangerous. You can underline that. Side stream smoke is dangerous. Not may be dangerous, not could be dangerous, is dangerous for people who are exposed to it. It's dangerous to others. Smoking is responsible for spontaneous abortion, miscarriage. That's why you shouldn't smoke when you're pregnant. And if you don't abort your child while you're smoking, it causes developmental disorders, and there are consequences, often long-term, for children who are born to smoking mothers. Tobacco use wreaks havoc among those who are dual diagnosed, particularly substance use disorder and bipolar disease. And this pisses me off probably more than anything else about the tobacco industry is they know they do this, and they still target advertise, and they still do these things. Tobacco smoking, use of tobacco products complicates other illnesses. If you are anything that you get, tobacco use compromises your immune system. Tobacco use makes it more difficult for you to heal from injuries or wounds or just contagious illnesses. This something just occurred to me while I was doing this. Merle Travis and Tex Williams, Commander Cody and the Lost Planet Airmen recorded this. So did Asleep at the Wheel and a bunch of other people. Jimmy Dean recorded this. Smoke, smoke, smoke that cigarette. Puff, 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 and if you smoke yourself to death, tell St. Peter at the Golden Gate that you hate to make him wait, but you just gotta have another cigarette. It is a beast of a habit, a beast of an addiction to try to rid yourself of. I know I've gone through recovery that included getting off of alcohol, methamphetamine, cocaine, marijuana, all the different drugs that I've done. And I'm not bragging. What I'm saying is I moved on from those drugs easier than I moved on from tobacco. I still sometimes catch myself today smelling a freshly lit cigarette, and I'm like that shark Bruce in Finding Nemo when he gets that whiff of blood, ooh, that's good. And it smells good to me, and it triggers some craving, actually. I also will find myself patting myself down sometimes, or reaching over on the bedside table when I wake up in the morning, because that's the first thing I always used to do. I'd grab a cigarette and light it before I got out of bed in the morning. So anyway, it's a hard one to quit. Another great American fraud is vaping. If you're vaping, stop it. A couple of things about vaping. It's unhealthy. I don't give a damn what you've heard and what you've read and who told you or you know, how. It is unhealthy. Yeah, but bush art is just water vapor. No, it ain't. If you can smell it and you can taste it, it's not just water vapor. If other people can walk in a room and smell you've been doing it, it's not just water vapor. And the chemicals that are in it are quite dangerous chemicals, like diethylene glycol. That's the stuff that they used to use, that they still use for antifreeze. It's the solvent that they used to make elixir sulfanilamide that killed all those people back in the 30s. It's been approved in small amounts as a preservative to keep food and things from spoiling. And people who vape will point that out to you. Well, this has been approved by the FDA for use. It's been approved by use to put into small amounts as a preservative into food. It hasn't been approved for you to put it in a pipe and freebase it. It's not a safer alternative to cigarettes, and it's killing people, and it's causing a lot of problems with lung injuries, heart injuries, that kind of thing. It is not a safer alternative for cigarettes. It is another nicotine delivery system, so that a lot of people who are vaping and using the e-cigarettes and what have you are using these flavored juices that they get at the smoke shops and what have you. But they're also using nicotine reinforced things so that you're still getting your rather high nicotine dosages. And you can get nicotine from gum and other places too, but the vape is just another thing. It may be because I'm old and I'm past the edge of cool or something like that, but the whole vaping thing just totally escapes me. I don't get the charm of it. You don't get a buzz out of that stuff unless you put something else in it. Vape juices are also rapidly becoming the source of poisoning for kids. And tobacco products always have been. A real source of poisoning for children have been getting into cigarettes and eating them, or eating cigarette butts out of the ashtray, that kind of thing. Kids don't have the various tastes that you get when you're an adult. Their taste is somewhat undeveloped. So that they may drink cleaning product from under the sink, and it doesn't occur to them that it tastes bad or is hurtful or anything like that. Vape juices smell good. They are attractive, and they have a fairly good taste, and they're deadly if you drink them, which is the way a child would ingest them. The long-term consequences of vaping, what happens to a person who vapes a lot, say for 10 or 15 or 20 years? We don't know. We haven't been seeing that for 10 or 15 or 20 years. It's unclear, but we know that there are acute consequences, the things that could happen to you right now from vaping, and we do see that happening, and there are things that can happen to you long term over vaping. Sucking gases into your lung is a bad idea, so don't do that. One of the things that Bill Talman said in his commercial was, if you don't smoke, don't start. If you do smoke, quit. Don't be a loser, and you are going to be a loser. You are going to be a loser, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean you're going to lose your health, and in some cases you're going to lose your life. It's that dangerous. It is probably the most dangerous drug use you can do. And we don't have in a pack a red cigarette. It'd be nice if they would, wouldn't it? Or a black one that would let you know that when you get there, this is the cigarette of no return. When you smoke this one, you're going to die of something. We don't know which one of those cigarettes is going to be, but it's going to be one of them. And that's something that you might want to stick in a frontal lobe. Tobacco use has been a part of American history even before the advent of the European conquest. It's been here on this country forever, and it's from America that smoking spread to the rest of the world. This was the epicenter of the great tobacco catastrophe. Tobacco immediately became an important part of the emerging European American economy. There's a wonderful musical out that it predates Hamilton. It's called 1776, and it came out, I think, in that year, and it's about basically the formation of the United States. And in that musical, where they sing their parts mostly, there is a debate in Congress, the Constitutional Congress, about slavery. And if you know your history, you know that black people were considered 3/5 of a human being back in those days. The issue of slavery was a big deal, and in putting together the Constitution and what we were going to do. And there's a song that the representative of North Carolina, Rutledge, is singing, called "Tobacco and Rum and Slaves." Let's drink a toast to the Ivory Coast, tobacco and rum and slaves. Those were the building blocks of the United States at the time. Tobacco was terrifically important. That's how we financed the Continental Army. That's how it was an underpinning. It was the underpinning foundation of the emerging agronomic economy that the infantile United States had. And even though it holds a special place in our history and in our culture, tobacco is the largest drug-related public health issue in the United States, to which all other drug-related issues pale in comparison. This is the biggest health crisis that we have going on as far as drug issues are concerned in this country. Ooh, I think I done run out of what am I doing wrong here? Well, I don't know. You tell me, Howard. Maybe I do that. And then, no, I'm not sure. I'm not trying to shut anything down. I'm trying to. Okay, there I am. I'm having a malfunction here, and it may be. I may be the malfunction. It may be the. Maybe the machine. I don't know. But anyway, that's it for tobacco, and see you for the next one, which is caffeine and the other methyls and things. Bye.